Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Today we are joined by Kolja Spori. Kolja has been a Formula One manager. He is a university lecturer, a danger zone traveler, and is also a diplomat of Liberland. Kolja, thank you for joining us today. And do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Hello, Adam. It's great to talk to a fellow Liberlander from Monaco to the United States West Coast. Glad to see Liberland represented all over the world.
Absolutely. And for all of our listeners, who knows where they are, but as you just mentioned, all over the world, it's a beautiful time to be a Liberlandian. Speaking of which, can you tell us how you began your journey as a Liberlandian?
I had read in the press early on about the Liberland project, and I was immediately fascinated. About 3 years ago, I met Vid Jedlicka, who is now my president or our president, at a famous libertarian conference in Bodrum, Turkey, Professor Hoppe's Property and Freedom Conference. And Vid and I immediately clicked, and I was very glad and honored that he took me on board as a now a diplomat for Liberland.
And it sounds like at least 3 years ago, you had what we would consider a freedom mindset, a liberty-based mentality. Were you always like that, or did you used to believe differently?
I was always like this. I left home at age 17. I was a windsurfer, a big wave windsurfer all over the world. That is addicting to freedom in itself. Never really spent much time in government and NGO networks. Always felt like an entrepreneur. So self-ownership and voluntarism and also the non-aggression principle came to me naturally. But later on, I also learned about the theory and the academic side.
And so the theory side, the academic side, can you explain a little bit more about how that has helped craft the way that you think?
I was studying economics in Frankfurt and UCLA. And at the time, about 30 years ago, it was neo-institutionalism that I was following. And to learn about Austrian school economics and the libertarian academic world, I had to meet people who pointed me towards it, which was maybe 5 years ago. And so I basically read some of the books and met some of the protagonists like Professor Hoppe and Wolfgang Block and a couple of others. I think it is actually the most natural way for people to organize themselves and to produce and distribute goods. And it is our statist world that gives the impression that other solutions could be better. They are definitely not.
I agree with you. And to go deeper into that statist world, you've been to, 190 of these state-backed countries?
Yes, I have been to 192 of the 193 United Nations member countries. Actually, that also taught me that the meaning of a state is not as sacrosanct as we sometimes believe, because out of those member states, there's quite a number of countries that are not recognized by other countries. Sometimes there's new entrants, like recently South Sudan or East Timor. So others are waiting in line, like Kosovo. Others would like to become an independent member, but will never make it because they're not backed by the Western powers. Examples are Abkhazia, South Ossetia, Somaliland, West Sahara, Sahrawi Republic. I certainly had a complete overview about all the exponents of statism in the world. Just one country missing.
And that country is?
Eritrea, which has no particular reason. It just happens to be the last one I need to visit. But let me tell you something. I'm thinking about not visiting it as a sort of protest, because it's quite some statist procedures that I need to go through, like applying for a visa, having a local guide, and really they make it not so easy. And funnily, we have a lot of Eritreans entering Central Europe at the moment without passport and without visa. Somehow I thought I should make a point of this, that we're in a strange time at the moment.
Absolutely. I think you have a very compelling story there. I would not be surprised if you're able to bring some of these things to light simply from your background and your experience. So out of all of the quote unquote danger zones that you've traveled to, what's one place that you've been to that you've kind of been like, you know what, I think I'll be okay if I never come back here?
It's funny that you say it. Actually, I love danger zone atmosphere, and that is not the reason I wouldn't go back. Although Mogadishu, Somalia, was so wild, I was actually there last year in 2017. It's really dangerous. So I would hope to go back there when they're functioning again as a civilized society. But there's other countries that I'm not going back to because they are bland and nothing to see that exists. Not going to name any.
Okay. We keep everyone happy. Can you tell us about a unique experience that you've had personally since being associated with Liberland?
Yes, I was very pleased that Vidyadlichka agreed to host my Extreme Traveler International Congress 2 years ago. We had 40 of the world's most traveled people from around 20 countries visiting Liberland for a big event. It's an annual event I'm organizing, and Vid and his team had organized a fantastic reception in the free trade zone of Apatin and the 2-3 hotels there. And then on the state vessel, the MS Liberty, which took us down the Danube, or actually up the Danube towards Liberland. The only downside was that the Croatians were out with 4 patrol boats and a militia at the beach. So they really made sure we could not step foot on Liberland. Nevertheless, we have the passport stamp and we got the whole Liberland feeling and everybody was happy.
Yeah. Hey, you were as close as you could get. And as you mentioned, you got the passport stamp, you got the feeling, and that's interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about the organization that, did you say you founded with 40 of the world's most sophisticated travelers?
Yes, it's called the Extreme Traveler International Congress, or in short, ETIC. ETIC has 2 meanings here. We're ticking off boxes of the world. And ETIC is also a play on words on ethical behavior. I believe that travel in itself is an ethical undertaking because you meet people all over the world and you build bridges to different cultures. So I'm inviting around 30 to 40 travelers every year who have been to almost every country, or indeed to every country. So it's quite a small circle of extreme travelers.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess it gives me a target to hit. I know we joked before the call. I think I've been to about 13 or 14 countries. And then you turn around and you're like, hey, if you come to Europe, you can do about 15 in one day.
That's true, Adam. You can only do that in Europe. He has, I think, a Guinness Book record entry now because of that trip.
Interesting. Who is that?
He's a Norwegian guy, and his name is, one moment, you got me there. Usually very strong with names. He's also a book author.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't get the name right now.
We'll if we're curious enough, we'll look him up. We'll Google him or something after the call. Kolja, can you now tell us a little bit more about your professional background too? I know you talked about learning economics while in university, while in school, but I noticed you had the Formula One manager on your resume.
Yes, I had my first job as head of sponsorship for Hugo Boss, the fashion company. Mm-hmm. And that made it possible that I created my own company as a sports marketing agent, especially in Formula One, car racing, but also in America's Cup sailing, Class 1 offshore powerboat racing, a bit of heavyweight boxing. So in my opinion, interesting platforms, especially for a young guy. And I was lucky to be involved in a couple of good deals at the time. And that made it possible for me to travel a lot in the last 10 years or so. My company base is in Monaco ever since, so I'm also an entrepreneur.
Well, Monaco, that seems to be the land of entrepreneurs. Am I accurate in saying that?
I think so, yeah. It's a very good place. I love it. It is maybe not a libertarian country. There's a lot of state representatives there. But I have no problem with a benevolent ruler like Prince Albert, who I've met several times. Mm-hmm. And Monaco is a great country, even if Liberland is my number one.
Good to know. What advice would you give to an aspiring Liberlandian, maybe someone who was in your shoes about 3 years ago?
I think it is a good idea to make yourself visible to Liberland by promoting the country, maybe with a press article or with an event in your country where you make the spirit of Liberland available to other compatriots, and thereby show the Liberland leadership that you are able to help the whole project. This is a much better way than simply applying online for the citizenship.
I agree. Although applying online for citizenship helps, I think it's funny. I'm not sure. It sounds like your story was a little bit different, but a lot of people I have on the show so far have all kind of gone through the same. They applied online and then got a face-to-face opportunity, a face-to-face interaction. And that's when a lot of current Liberlandians capitalized. But it's funny that we all kind of followed this online citizenship first step.
Yes, I was fortunate to have this face-to-face opportunity with Jedlička, but I'm sure there's many roads that lead to Rome, or in this case, to Liberland.
Definitely. Well, Kolja, where in your mind do you see Liberland in the next 3 to 5 years?
I am very optimistic about Liberland. Actually, the only micronation that is going to make it to the next level, in my opinion. Why? Because it is a project on a terra nullius, the only such project where there's a legal claim under international law. And this will be established sooner or later through the lawsuits pending, as far as I know, in The Hague. Mm-hmm. And also in Croatia. So once this legal problem is solved, then the country can be settled with Liberlanders living there. I'm absolutely sure this is going to happen. And then all those fantastic plans that have been made by architects like Zaha Hadid to make Liberland look like a future Hong Kong in the Balkans mm-hmm. is going to take place.
I agree. Where or should I say, this, you mentioned to me earlier, this is kind of rare. This is maybe only your third or fourth recent online interaction in English. How can the listeners keep in touch with you? And do you think you're going to be making more guest appearances here moving forward?
I have had a number of appearances in the German-speaking world. Recently, from a libertarian point of view, I had an interview with Doug Casey and Joel Bauman on The International Man. Then I was on Jeff Barwick's Anarchast show. So I'm very glad to become part of the international libertarian spirit, and I'm obviously happy for any further projects.
Absolutely. Is there a way anyone listening could get in touch with you? Do you have a website or some point of contact?
I have a website where my email is visible. That is on www.spori.net. That is spori.net. And I'm glad to talk to other Liberlanders or aspiring Liberlanders in the future.
Good to know. Well, Kolja, thank you. It's been a complete honor and privilege having you on the show. Do you have any closing remarks?
Great to talk to you today, Adam. Super project of yours. Keep it up and going. Thank you.
You've got it. All right, Liberlandians, we will catch you in the next episode. Again, this has been episode 9 of the Liberland Show with Kolja Spori. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. We'll see you in the next one. Hold on one moment there. Kolja has recalled the name of the Norwegian traveler. What was his name?
His name is Gunnar Garfors.
Perfect. How do you spell that?
Gunnar, that's like a gun, Gunnar, and Garfors is Garfors.
All right, everyone, you heard it right here. Go Google him now. Check out Gunnar. I can't even remember how to say it. Gunnar Garfors?
Yes, the man who did 19 countries in one day.
Wow. That's the end of the show right there. Go look up Gunnar and get some inspiration. We'll see you in the next one, guys.